We're coming into a beautiful conjunction between Mars and Jupiter on August the 14th, where you can tap the courage of your convictions and move into authentic expression of what? Fortunate action. And we can all do that, not just individually, but collectively. Now, there are some swampy matters to do with a T square involving Saturn, Venus as well. We'll lightly address that, but let's stay with the purity and the simplicity of Jupiter, Santa Claus, ho, 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 fairy godfather, expansion, growth, prosperity, and plenty, wisdom, truth, and knowledge, meeting with Mars in a cycle that happens every single 2 years and a bit in the sky, but in the sign of Gemini. These two coming together in that sign only happen on irregular and rare cycles. For example, in 1942 and last seen in 1989. Therefore, this is a cycle not again seen until 2060. And depending on how old you are, this is allowing for you to experience a once or twice in a lifetime storyline. Most of us listening to this video were around in 1989 and will, of course, some of you be around in 2060. But we were going to talk about how these two combinations of planets in your sign of Gemini, in your whole sign natal sky house, will impact you over the next 2 years, and how you can use this energy for yourself and to understand what it's inviting you to do when we talk about fortunate action, bold action, courage and conviction, truth and wisdom, plenty and prosperity. Honestly, Jupiter says, let me give you some expansion, luck, opportunity, and prosperity and children. And Mars says, let's do the actions and decisions necessary to make that true. So we're going to get going and talk about your sign. This is me, Lori Lothian, because if you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a regular, please, I'm so happy for you to be back again. And either whether you're new or old, hit that like button, share this video, subscribe, and all of the things that help the channel thrive. I would appreciate it. I'm using Western Tropical Zodiac Astrology, not sidereal. We're talking fixed stars and minor asteroids in all of my videos because I'm really into looking how those stars and those minor asteroids tell us the details we need to know to really navigate our life using astrology as a tool to time our best life. Speaking of timing your best life, my course starts in the month of September. And in that month of September, I'm teaching you 6 weeks long course, live, Facebook group, a whole bunch of other perks, weekly coaching calls in order to learn how to read your chart and learn how to use some very cool, pretty simple, but ancient and pretty darn accurate timing tools. The point of the course is timing your life, not learning about your natal chart, not navel gazing, not looking for, my Venus is in Leo. Does that mean this about me? No, we're talking about how to learn the basics of your chart so that you can then use that information to time your life. So come aboard and learn with me. It is not yet open for enrollment, but if you look in the description box, there is click the link through to the course description and or get on the early bird discount notice wait list so that you don't miss the beginning of the enrollment cart sometime in the month of August, probably at the very end. So let's talk next about what we want to talk about, which is this is a sky that is an incredibly energetic sky in the month of August 2024. A lot of astrologers are buckling up. I've already put out an overview for August in which I called it something like buckle up, a roller coaster wild ride. That is because of what we call a T square coming through the sky starting around August the 13th and landing all the way through till the first week of the 21st or so of August. It is that Mars conjunct Jupiter on August 14th that is a part of the energy of the T square, because that Mars and Jupiter then come into the square to Saturn retrograde in Pisces and the square to Venus in her fall in Virgo. Nonetheless, it's still a good thing. Those little phalanges of difficulty can temper the positivity in the shorter term. But in the longer term, where we were going to focus for you today is how this conjunction allows you to have a synodic reset cycle around actions that can and decisions that lead to bounty and prosperity in the part of your chart that is Gemini. So I'm going to also mention the cycle just for a second and give you the gist of it. When April 1942, it was around April 3rd, 1942, Jupiter and Mars came together in Gemini, we saw the beginning in that month, later in April, what they call the Doolittle campaign in Japan. Well, not in Japan, United States sent bombers to Tokyo as revenge or as a response to Pearl Harbor. Now, that Doodle campaign and other such campaigns that were engendered into being between April of 42 and April of 44 were considered to be the turning of the tide toward the Allied nations away from the Hitler story, right? So the beginning of the tide, turning of the tide. Now, in the United States sibling natal chart, the Gemini part of the sky is the open enemies. The people in the United States would consider an adversary that they need to fight, that are their enemies. And obviously, they would think that Japan, who just bombed Pearl Harbor, was an enemy. So we went into a story in April of 1942. Don't forget, Pearl Harbor bombing was in December of 1941. By April 42, the United States armed up, got their bombers ready to go, fly overseas and bomb Tokyo, which is a big deal when you talk about these little bombers they had back then, not jets or not missiles and not guided AI. No, real guys got on those bombers and flew there to exact a response from the Pearl Harbor event. So we may see some themes to do with the United States yet again, and things to do with their involvement in wars with open enemies. Just keep that in mind. When Jupiter came into a conjunction with the 1989 Berlin Wall fell story, it was the beginning of fortunate action in new directions regarding the end of two parts of Germany and also the beginning of Glasnost and the end of the Cold War hostilities between the open enemy of the United States, Russia, and the communist part of Germany, and the beginning of a softening in that stance. Jupiter wants to bring wisdom. Jupiter wants to bring goodness. Mars is the god of war. When he combines forces with Jupiter, he's trying to be an effectively good, noble warrior, bringing something positive. And when we think of Jupiter being expansion, of course, the expansion of the markets into Russia and of the connection with Russia after March of 1989, add 2 years, was a big part of the story. And in August 14th of 2024, yet again, the Jupiter conjunction with Mars in the United States sibling natal chart, the house of open enemies, makes us wonder, what could this be about? It's interesting because Gemini is the neighbors and the twins and the brothers. The Berlin Wall that fell was dividing two parts of one nation, Germany, and families were cut apart. Neighbors were cut apart from each other. And the Berlin Wall coming down because of the Jupiter-Mars conjunction in the Gemini part of the sky of the open enemies or adversaries of the United States is a perfect example. Now, when we look at 1942, and we talk about Japan being retaliated upon by the United States, it also was the beginning of the end of the war. And you could argue that had Hitler taken over the world, like the good old man in the high castle story, we might be in a very different and very challenging and very dark alternate reality. August the 14th, 2024, what could it be? Well, what does the United States think an open enemy is today? China, Russia, Iran? I doubt that the United States is going to see any major shift in its relationship with Iran at this point, especially after Israel assassinated the chief of the Hamas in Tehran. And now there's going to be escalation between Iran and Israel. That doesn't look to me like what this may be about, but I could be wrong. It could be a turning point for something positive in those open enemy relationships. On the other hand, Russia is a known enemy, and the Berlin Wall thing in 1989 softened that relationship up from the Cold War mutual detente of nuclear armaments. And there may be something about yet another turning point with the nation of Russia. Russia has maybe a Virgo ascendant. If we're using the chart of the end of the USSR, there's different charts for Russia because it's gone through so many iterations. But the modern Russia, as it was deconstructed from the Soviet Union identity, can be a Virgo rising. So we're going to talk a little bit about the possibility of a major shift in the Russia stance to the United States and vice versa. I do think that's much more possible than anything else. And right now, of course, Russia and Ukraine are still working at trying to figure out what to do with the hot mess over there. And with Russia also releasing the prisoners in a prisoner exchange with the Biden-Harris administration, that's a gesture of goodwill from Russia, from Putin towards the particular current administration. And some people think that's him siding with the Harris ticket, rather signaling a siding with the Harris ticket to work with the Democratic Party in the future rather than to work with Donald Trump. That's arguable. Who knows? But I would say that we'll see major developments in the month of August, in the second half of August into early September regarding Russia, US stance. And it doesn't have to be just in the weeks afterwards. This is a 2-year reset button. The 2 years from 1942 to 44, and the turning points in the war towards the Allies becoming more successful because the United States got involved. The turning point in 1989, add 2 years to 91, of Glasnost's mutual agreements around peace treaties of disarmament and nuclear weapons, the shift of the stance between Russia and the United States. Now we have a 2-year window opening up, August the 14th, 2024, regarding whatever open enemies the United States would perhaps have a shift in stance toward, which we can say is going to include fortunate action and a courage of convictions archetype of the energies of Mars and Jupiter. Now, we won't see this again in Gemini until 2060, so we won't think about what that could be, but here we go. This is happening at 16 degrees of Gemini. If you have your Gemini sun, moon, or rising anywhere near 16 degrees of Gemini, of course it's a big deal for you. And honestly, if your Saturn is at 16 degrees of Gemini, then this is a Saturn return on steroids. If your Mars is anywhere near 16 degrees of Gemini, this is a Mars return on steroids. Mars return charts happening every 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years, on 2 years on average, and Saturn returns every 29 and a half years on average. You are in major resets with major archetypal shifts in your life in the place of this event, your Gemini house. And if it's your Saturn that's being conjuncted by this particular Mars and Jupiter, then you're going to look at Saturnian houses in your chart having major changes. Now we're going to go ahead, and if it's a Mars part of your chart, like you got Mars at 16 Gemini, then you're going to see the houses that Mars rules, right, which is Aries and Scorpio, also having collateral change in the next 2 years. Again, if your Saturn's there, Saturn rules your Aquarian Capricorn houses. They will have major changes in the next 2 years. If your Sun sits at Gemini, 16 near that, 3 degrees either side, the Leo part of your chart will have collateral change, right? You get the gist? If it's your moon, the Cancer part of your chart will have collateral change. If it's the ascendant part of your life, anything can change. If it's a Venus in your chart that sits here where the Jupiter conjunction is happening with Mars, and all the houses of Libra and Taurus plus Gemini have major changes. If it's a Mercury in your chart at Gemini near 16 degrees, it's going to end up being the Virgo and Gemini parts of your chart that have significant change over the next 2 years. And did I miss a planet? And if it's a Jupiter that sits in your chart at Gemini 16 degrees, give or take 3 on either side, then of course it's your Pisces and your Sagittarius parts of your chart over the next 2 years that also have collateral change. So there's a little primer on how to look at those individual planetary bodies that may be impacted by this conjunction of these two planets together in a way that won't happen again until 2060 and last happened in 1989. All right. So what else can I say about this before we go ahead and do all signs? One of my favorite friends, writers, and teachers is Ren Butler of the Archetypal Universe. Now, I had promised I'd share his course in the month of August. Even though I'm also teaching in September, he does a very long course, third week of September through the end of April. It's a certification in archetypal astrology. I've taken that class with him twice. Second time, I just redid it, but it's amazing. He's an amazing teacher. He's kind, he's engaging. The small group settings, the breakout groups, he does an incredible job of organizing this course. He's been teaching it for a long while. He's a fellow Canadian. And if you would like to learn from him, I will put a link to his course enrollment in the description box. Let him know when you sign up that Lori sent you. Please just say, Lori sent me. That's all you need to say. Thank you very, very much. Now, this take that Ren Butler has here on the Mars-Jupiter narrative in the archetypal astrology, which is to look at the patterns that planets represent rather than anything else. Like it's the pattern of war from Mars. But Mars and Jupiter in combination can be the exuberant energies of physical confidence, a talent for good timing and fortunate action, impulses towards self. On the dark shadow side, self-aggrandizement, overly boisterous or rambunctiousness, and big shot swagger. big shot swagger. I love the big shot swagger archetype. I'm already seeing okay corral moments here, but we may see some big shot swagger in the real-time sky as well during this August 4th, give or take a day or two or three in the sky, either side. Now, we'll be talking about the world events in a very short moment. He does say that Nietzsche, with a Mars opposite Jupiter's expression, the courage of one conviction. Nietzsche, the philosopher, has a Mars Jupiter combination, and one of his favorite quotes from Nietzsche is the courage of one's convictions. Also, A.C. Doyle has a Mars conjunct Jupiter, and I think that's a Sherlock Holmes writer, and the quote is, "The game is afoot." The game is afoot, because Mars is sportsmanship and chivalry and bravery and valor and all the good warrior words that you can drum up. The bravery, the courage, and the valor of those boys and men that got in little B-52 bombers or whatever and flew across the Pacific and then took their lives at risk in order to bomb military targets in Tokyo. Really, really is about courage and valor and daring and all the good Mars words that are amplified Jupiter, the good warrior, the true warrior. So those energies are activated when we see these combinations of Mars and Jupiter in any kind of combination. If Mars is passion and sexuality, Jupiter expands it. I'm not even reading anymore. You can probably have everything from a sex addict and a Don Juan or a player to something akin to, a passion that just is absolutely exuberant and enthusiastic and over the top, I think of, if anybody knows the Myers-Briggs, I think of the ENFPs looking very Mars Jupiter. All you ENFPs out there, you're the Mars Jupiter energy in my example of my own inner brain there. So he also mentions the idea of the shadow nationalism, right? Patriotism, expansionism, hegemony. I would say he doesn't say that, but hegemony. So I was listening to a podcast talking about how RFK, he was interviewed, and the comments were by the interviewer, "You do see the United States in wanting to support its success as a country, not an empire." And there was a guy named something Kennedy, a professor, who wrote a book about the cause of the fall of all empires was the overexpansion of its military into far off places. So keep that in mind, because when we look at Mars, the warrior, Jupiter expansion, we're talking like hegemony. I'm the world power. I'm the world sheriff. I'm the world Mars police, right? Jupiter empire builder. And the spoils of war, he says. Yeah. So I'm going to go with that. Spoils of war could be there, Mars and Jupiter. But I think it's more like... war is a defensive measure, right? I'm protecting like the women and children who live in this piece of land. But war can also be an aggressive feature of expanding one's territory or power through aggression. And so Mars and Jupiter can be both sides of that equation. When the United States went against its open enemy of Japan, it was ostensibly responding to an attack. Yes, I know there's conspiracies that there was a known attack coming and they didn't stop it because they wanted to go to war. So I'm not going to say one way or the other. I mean, I know the United States was isolationist and the public did not want to get involved in Europe's war. But the people in power, which later became the military-industrial complex, may have had other agendas. So I know those conspiracies exist. You don't have to correct me, or those known historical reframes exist in the comments. Now let's get rolling, shall we? And let's talk about this story as it applies to the world at large and your sign by me pulling up the picture of the chart at the time of this conjunction. And I'm going to say, though it is involved in a difficult T-square, we're not going to cover that in particular, because I'm going to do something called the T-square from hell video on my week ahead, the Monday that encompasses the August 14th week. And you can go into a deeper dive into the T-square from hell at that time. To make it a more simple picture, and I want to go back to August the 14th, I'm going to delete a lot of planets that I'm not sure are useful for our eyeballs. Don't forget, if you'll feel this on the 13th and the 14th of August. It's closer on the 14th, and even on the 15th, you'll still be feeling it, but 14th and 15th of August. I've noticed in real stories that Mars takes action before he arrives. It's not after, it's before. So I noticed things like the Super Bowl massacre in, Israel having to do with the Pluto Mars story. And it really, literally, I think it was a conjunction that literally happened 3 days before the conjunction. And I noticed that Mars, when it came to Donald Trump's assassination attempt, as Mars approached Uranus and Algol, it was before the perfected conjunction by 2 days. And I'm going to give you a heads up. The conjunction may be a world event around August 13th and up to 3 days beforehand, where Mars is going to come into contact with Jupiter. And somewhere, let's say between the 11th of August and maybe the 11th of August and the 15th of August, we will see Mars-Jupiter stories in the House of Open Adversaries for the nation of the United States of America. Okay. And that's this story here. What I am going to do is delete a bunch of stuff that is in the way. It's here for other reasons. Like we don't know, but why Volcano is opposite Pluto, which is to be an explosive moment in the middle of August. And there's other elements here that are very challenging. So, and I brought up Nessus, the asteroid for revenge, sitting on Saturn at the part of the T-square. And on the darker side of the T-square from hell, revenge coming toward the United States may be an unfortunate side effect of this sky. And that revenge is connected to issues to do with open enemies in the world. My target open enemy would be, of course, Iran. That's a thought, right? Now, Iran would be insane to go to war openly with the United States. So it may be a little bit like if Israel's going to start assassinating our nuclear scientists and people who are visiting our sovereign territory in embassies or in our capital city of Tehran, we're going to strike back in the same manner. Why would they strike the United States? Not to scare you, instead of striking Israel. That would be a question, because is Israel looking equally difficult and in harm's way at this time? In the middle of the month, Israel is a Libra rising with the South Node on its ascendant. That's a part of the cycle. Every 20 years, 18 and a half, 20 years, Israel goes into war with its neighbors. Rinse, repeat is so predictable. It's historical. It happens all the time. And it's never good. And so, yes, they still have the South Node transit through here. It's still challenging. That's just an ongoing story. But what is this part of the sky for Israel? If this is its first house, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's foreign entities. For a nation, it would be other countries, other nationalities. It may also be legal and court systems like the United Nations, the ICC, etc. So yes, there is that. But it's still a trine conjunction to the ascendant of Israel. It's not necessarily hard. It's not necessarily the darker or more difficult aspect that is affecting the ascendant of Israel. So I do not think that the big story in the middle of August is Israel or necessarily even Gaza. Okay? Yes, we have Saturn in the 4th house of home and homeland yes, we have Ceres in the house of home and homeland matters, the scythe, the sickle, the grim reaper for the nation of Israel. But we do not have a harsh aspect at all occurring between this Mars-Jupiter and the ascendant of the nation of Israel, nor the descendant of the open enemies of the nation of Israel. So, if anything, Israel might be under economic duress based on the fact that this T-square will impact the labor force and the 3rd house, the 9th house of the nation of Israel. So there may be some significant problems with the labor force, with regulations, with laws to do with things that are going on in the country, including the potential that Netanyahu's still in trouble legally and that may be coming to the forefront. Not just around August the 13th, or we go back 11th, 12th, 13th, the 11th through to the 15th, but over the 2 years that follow, that kind of story. All right. we are going to say one more thing. Joe Biden and Netanyahu and the United States of America are all Sagittarius rising. And this conjunction of Jupiter Mars is in the house of the open opponents, enemies, and adversaries of Biden. Of course, he's the president still, so that can include nations that he's adversarial to, but also opponents in an election year. This is also going to, so Jupiter Mars can be a favoring of them, or bold, fortunate action, or swagger from the open enemies, including Iran. Also, Netanyahu's open enemies are swaggering all over him on his house of open adversaries, right? So there's a lot going on for both Netanyahu, Biden, and the Sibley USA chart. They are all Sag risings. 12 degrees Sag rising. So this is really just off the descendant of the United States, and it's a pretty close touch point in that regard to open enemies of the United States getting involved in some kind of shift. Don't forget the Berlin Wall went down, and there was glasnost and good things with Russia, and the Doolittle campaign and other acts of trying to get Japan from being a harmful force in the larger war, but also more specifically towards US, because the Pacific, Japan was able to reach the United States quite effectively. This is a story that literally ended well. So we can always say good things can happen to do with war and to do with courage of convictions in a way that is going to hopefully be hearty and heartened. Now, I didn't get rid of everybody, so we'll just leave them here. I just want to talk about the general stuff, then your sign, right? It's going to be a 2-year reset button. So you want to use it or lose it. It's something that is not to be dismissed. It's handy as anything. But you have had 2-year reset buttons before in signs that have not been Gemini. And so what about the other times that these two have come together? Mars and Jupiter, oddly, every 2 years and every 2.4 years co-join together in their synodic cycle and create a Mars-Jupiter reset button in your life that's not in Gemini. So it's maybe useful if I just give you a few dates, if you don't mind. You can look backwards and go, oh, that was a reset button in my second house of earnings, my third house of siblings and travel, my fourth house of home. So that thing. Now you're going to say, I don't know the meanings of the houses. In my description box, click the More button under the title, scroll down. I have a free Meanings of the 12 Houses PDF, a free How to Cast Your Chart in Whole Sign Houses and Why tutorial that allows you to find your natal chart. All you'll need is your birth time. If you don't, dig up a birth certificate, talk to your relatives, ask your mom, try to find that birth time. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the other cycles that happened in the last few years. And I want you to get a pen and paper because I think you might find it fascinating to look at how this repeating cycle is so darn predictable and how you can look at it effectively, because don't forget, everything that happens here will happen again. So some of you will get 2 of those in your lifetime. So I'm going to pull out the chart and share it with you. Some of you know that I am a fan of giving you teaching you to fish instead of giving you a fish. And this is one of my main goals of being here on YouTube, is to teach you things. And also I teach classes and come to Sky Reader, this fall. So I'm just going to show you how you can find out about these repeating cycles by yourself. I'm going to bring you to the website that's a very handy tool. It's called astro.com. And it's free, and you can set up a free account there, and it's fantastic. Astro.com and AstroSeek. This is astro-seek.com that I'm directing you to. Astro-seek.com. And here we have it set for Mars. I don't know if you can see it, but this is Mars in a conjunction to Jupiter. And this is the historical chart that you can grab and just go, oh my God, here it happens every 2 years, the sign it happens in and the degree it happens in. And I set it way back to 1921 because I was trying to track bigger astrological cycles with Gemini. And in this particular, any sign every 2-year conjunction, 0 degrees. I mean, you're at the top, a conjunction is Mars at 0 degrees conjunct Jupiter. And in any sign, and I put the dates here of 1920 to 2100, you can do this yourself. But if you'd just like to listen to what I'm about to tell you, okay, and get a gist of it, and I won't go back too far in time, right? I will go back closer to now. But in March 20th of 2020, May 29th of 2022, this conjunction happened at 3 degrees of Aries. And then I can make this bigger for you guys. I can zoom in and I'll go view, zoom in and view. I hope it gets one more zoom in. Now you can all see it, right? Zoom in. So now I've got us down here. So this is kind of like, why not grab it, right? This is what you need to know. You can track your history. May 29th, 2022, Mars co-joins in Aries at 3 degrees in the sign of Aries. So I'm an Aquarius rising. That's my third house of social media, online, writing, webinars, fortunate action, growth and expansion, bold courage and daring, courage of my convictions. What was I doing in my very busy communications house between May of 22 and May of 24? I was putting YouTube content out. I was my courage of my convictions. I spoke out against the war in Israel, the Gaza situation. I've always stood up for what I believe is true. I stood up for all kinds of things, the unsafe, ineffective medical procedures during the pandemic. I risk being demonetized and deplatformed because I have the courage of my convictions in my house of communications. This in blogs, social media, online commerce and things like that. So May of 29 to August of 14, I've been on my pulpit in the online world with the courage of my speech and communications and convictions in a communicating house, etc. So you see, I'm just giving you an idea as an Aquarius rising. This is my third house. If you know the meanings of the 12 houses, and you can get my free PDF, your whole sign house system chart, you can do this for yourself. Go back and see what reset in your life, March 20th of 2020. March 20th, 2020 to May of 22. That 2-year cycle was in Capricorn, where Mars and Jupiter joined at 22 degrees of Capricorn. March 20th to 20 to 22. I'm using me as an example. I joined a group called Sober Sisters. I took 6 months off of alcohol. I deeply investigated my relationship to alcohol during the pandemic as an anxiety binding escape tool. And that was my sobriety time, basically, or testing out sobriety. So that makes sense because it was in my 12th house. My 12th house is, of course, that part of you that self-undoes and sabotages, fortunate action, bold courage, ambition, expansion of that part of my life. In March of 20 to 22, there are other meanings. I began to make money online, digital money, abroad money. That happened as well, which is another 12th house meaning. What about 2018, January of 2018, all the way through to March of 2020, we're backtracking. That conjunction happened in Scorpio. I am somebody who happens to be a Aquarius rising, and therefore Scorpio is my 10th house of career and reputation, where I also have a generational Neptune. What did I do? I changed my career, bold, fortunate action in changing my career and reputation. In 2018, I studied Hellenistic astrology with my teacher, Adam Ellenbass, who will be on my channel to talk about the square of Saturn and Jupiter and that cycle. We're doing that recording the same week that you're hearing this video, and it will be out probably, I don't even know my dates anymore, but this Thursday, the week ahead. What day would that Thursday be? 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. It's probably behind you. You're listening to this a few days back. Adam came on my channel. We recorded, and you would already got that video in my box, in my channel. But I changed my career. Mars, change, decisions, action, fortunate, bold, and plenty, true and wise. So I'm trying to show you it works. It's not about me being a narcissist. I know myself best. I can give you me as the best example. You can go back to 2015, October the 17th, through to January 7th, 2018. And what was happening then? What was happening then was it was the conjunction at 14 degrees of Virgo, resetting your life in the whole sign Virgo, part of your sky. And in my chart, that is my taxes house and my shared resources with a spouse. I separated from my marriage partner, moved into my own place, got my own act together financially. I also sold property at that time with that. My partner was investment property and made money. Why does that matter? Because it's hot as hell in here, because the 8th house is money you can get from the sale of land in your 4th house. So what's one of the meanings? So all said and done, this cycle is easy to understand once you understand what you are looking for. And you know what? In Vancouver, we don't actually have a whole lot of air conditioning in older buildings because it never used to be this hot. Give me a minute. I'm trying not to make the mic sound like it's got blowing sounds, so give me a sec. It's brutally hot. All right. And you can keep going back here. And maybe some of you would like to screenshot this, so I'm going to make it bigger for you. If I go back to July of 2013 through to October of 2015, this conjunction happened in the sign of Cancer. That's in my sixth house of work, health, tenants, and rentals. I changed a rental property that I'd been in for a long time that I really liked, and I had to move, but that was okay. It was a fortunate move in many ways. So there's things that happen in that window of time that are exactly to do with rentals and property for me. Also, a change in my work direction in 2013 and 15. And it was all about work and also health. I had some significant health challenges at that time that helped me reset the way I focused on my body. And 2011, May to July of 2013, you can all go back May of 11 to July of 13. And we had Mars coming into a conjunction in Aries, right? And it's not going to happen that often in our lifetimes. And I'm an Aries sun and moon, but Aries is my third house. Between 2011 and 2013, I started my Awakened Dreamer blog. Third house is blogs, writing, communication. I became an editor at the online magazine's Goodman Project, Elephant Journal, senior editors. I was an editor at both magazines. I was online. I was writing. I was at HuffPost. I was on Business Insider. I wrote for a whole bunch of online magazines, right? I started an online magazine blogging writing career at that time because Aries is my house of writing, communicating, etc. So you can see the repeating cycle, but in 2022 in Aries, it wasn't what I was doing. I was starting my online world with YouTube and my channel here and all my online communications with you guys. Now I'm going to make this bigger one more time. I'm going to go view, and hopefully I'm convincing you that this works. My whole point of that long diatribe that I just went through was to show you that it works. Now, if you have your phone out, you may as well just screenshot this. It could be useful. We don't want to go back too far, like on a YouTube video, but let's take it back to 1989, down with the Berlin Wall. Well, I've kind of got it there. I've screenshot it. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to make it easy for you guys in case you don't feel like you want to go through this yourself. And I'm going to open up that screenshot for you. And then you'll be able to see it and do a screenshot while you're watching this, on your phone. This will make it a little easier. Just do a screenshot. And now you'll have this on your phone or on your computer. And you can use this little screenshot as a handy reminder that throughout 1993 to 2026, these conjunctions started happening. And you can see the signs. Every part of your 12 house pie slice chart is a sign and a house, one whole sign, one whole house. Don't go Placidus, it will screw you up. We're using the ancient traditional knowledge and wisdom that has been around for eons, not the modern inventions skewing to latitude. And so once you've cast your chart in whole sign houses, and I teach you how to do that in my tutorial, and you know the meanings of the 12 houses because you got my free meanings of the 12 houses PDF, you take this little screenshot and you start going through the changes in your life that happened every time Mars co-joined with Jupiter and the 2 years that followed in the sign house of your chart. It could be your marriage house. It could be your house of a career reputation. It could be your house of siblings. It could be your house of pets and tenancies. You're going to learn the meanings of the houses with my free PDF, and you'll be able to look at the synchronicity and the replays of these cycles throughout time. Of course, as I said, go back to 1989 when the conjunction happened in the sign of Gemini to compare the best you can that 1989 spring, add 2 years, right, until June of 2000 and 1991 was the last time this big, fortunate, bold action and change and goodness, plenty expansion and growth, decisions, and all of the momentum of Mars happened for you in the sign of Gemini. And for those of you who are old enough to remember 1942, April, add 2 years. Well, great for you, but most of us won't remember that. Most of us weren't born. I don't even know how old you have to be. I mean, if you're watching my YouTube channel now and you were born in the 1920s or 30s, I guess you count. Okay, I'm hopefully going to try to get this boho shirt not to fall off, all right? Okay, let's get going. I got this baby at a clothing exchange. Are you new to my channel? Haven't hit that like button, subscribe, please do. If you like world astrology, I have election videos coming out on the weekly, probably on Wednesdays. This one is RFK on Wednesday. You'll be probably getting this video on a Sunday. You're going to have to look back for that. I like astrology that is world astrology as well as your personal astrology. So I do both. Usually the beginning of a video is world astrology and the back end is you. Now let's go ahead and do every single sign about this synodic cycle reset button. And we're not focusing on the T-square. We're just talking about the meaning of the reset button in the house and sign it's in. Because yes, there is a T-square. And honestly, I can't tell you how much it bakes in the energy of the next 2 years, or whether it's just episodic and it feels like the middle of August is like, Saturn has a straitjacket, energetic, trying to contain the bounty and expansion of Jupiter and the bold action of Mars. And Saturn is like, the stern taskmaster going, I don't think so. Yellow light, guys. But that would be how you feel in August. The long game of the story is Mars and Jupiter in Gemini, resetting the Gemini sky, last seen in 89 to 91. Okay. Aries, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, Mars is resetting your life in the third house. What changes will you make there over the next 2 years that are bold and fortunate? And let's get rid of everybody else. Honestly, let's make this one of the most simplest videos you're ever going to see, because I don't want to go with the T-square. That's a video coming up on the week of the T-square and my Monday All Signs videos. I prefer it that way, if you don't mind. And the reason I do is because that is such a complex, nuanced, layered onion. And a complex, nuanced, layered onion is just going to complicate the synodic simplicity of this Jupiter, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars synodic cycle every 2.4 years. So here we have it. You're going to make changes here. You've done it before. You did it back in 89 to 91. Some of you may move. It may dramatically change your neighborhood. Why? Because Mars and Jupiter are in the house of neighbors and your local daily environment. And there may be some bold, fortunate actions that allow you to make a change to your neighbors and neighborhood situations in a way you haven't done since March of 1989, add 2 years more, right, to 91. Did you make a neighborhood change of any significance in that time? I did. I was an Aries sun and moon, so I can relate, right? Aries sun, moon, and rising is what we're listening to. I moved from New York City to Washington, D.C. Well, that's a pretty significant change of neighborhood. Okay. I also moved within that window one time in New York City. So I moved from Battery Park City to Roosevelt Island, then Roosevelt Island to Washington, D.C. Those are some big changes of neighbors and neighborhoods that I did between 89 and 91. What other things are you changing? Maybe your writing projects, your online presence, your communications projects. Maybe you're making big reset buttons and bold changes and fortunate action in the third house here to do with things to do with a younger sibling, one younger than you, or things to do perhaps with third house meanings to do with learning and teaching. If you may begin a new course of study over the next 2 years, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I can relate to that because I also enrolled in a screenplay writing course during this period and studied fiction and screenplay writing back in New York City at NYU, etc., and then later Georgetown University. You may also be teaching something new. If you're a teacher like I am, I probably am going to have bold, new, fortunate actions in teaching and courses. Give you an example. I have a literary agent who's very successful asking me to produce an astrology book. Proposal to sell to a major publisher. Fortunate action in the third house of writing. If it doesn't make sense to you, I'm surprised because it makes sense to me. How are you starting a new direction with bold confidence, courage of your convictions that's going to take 2 years to complete? When that Mars becomes square to Jupiter, it's called an opening square. I'll be doing a follow-up video telling you that you're doing a proof of concept about what you've been creating here. But it is a beautiful reset button. It flows to you and you're down with it. And of course, Mars is the Lord of your sign. So wherever Mars goes, you are paying attention. If you are at all paying attention to the sky, you're paying attention to the Lord of your sign. I hope that fan wasn't too noisy in the background. I apologize. This doesn't sound like a wind tunnel. And then we have the next story. We don't have the next story yet. So give me a minute, but we will. And I need to check the chart. It's not pinned to 0 Aries. It is. You guys know I do this every time. Taurus, sun, moon, and rising. So yeah, go back to March of 89, right, to June of 1991. That was the last time you had a 2-year reset button in your natal second house. It's a money house, guys. You change the way you make money, conserve money, save money, spend money, retain wealth. Your financial wellness and your means to survive belong to the second house that feeds the first, and therefore, it's mostly a money story. You may look back to that window of time as a Taurus sun, moon, or rising and ask yourself how you might have made big changes in that second house narrative that fulfilled themselves over 2 years. Sometimes the second house is what we ingest. What food do you put in your mouth? What's food style, and what cigarettes, vapes, and wine, and everything else that can go in the mouth or nose belong to the second house. And because of Chiron and the North Node in the 12th house right now, just trust me, they're there. This does indicate a window of time that's specifically useful for the breakthroughs in addictions that may belabor your life and cause you to sabotage and self-undo yourself. And those can come to a really beautiful ending in the next 2 years, courtesy of this reset button in your second house. Now, Jupiter expands your wealth and your savings and your earnings. All of those are growing in the next 2 years. Mars says bold ambition, and Mars is a self-starter. Normally in a natal chart, people who are self-starters in independent business enterprises and do their own thing, they have Mars here often. So you may also have a bold, ambitious new direction you want to go in starting your own business as well. Just a possibility, and a reminder that with, Pluto hovering up at the 10th degree, the 10th house at the early degrees, it also portends 2 years of extremely bold and ambitious and positive career momentum and success. So there is that vibe here for you as well. Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign, Mars and Jupiter co-joining together in your first house is a simple reset button of matters to do with your identity. How are you going to change who you are in the world? How are you going to reset your life in a way that there's a new you being created, a new identity, a new form? In other words, how people see you, how you define and see yourself is no longer going to be the same. You can end, cut, sever, and let go of areas of your life that no longer suit you. You're finished, especially in career matters, as Jupiter is the ruler of your career house, and there will be significant career changes in your life. No two ways about it. And also significant changes in the main groups of friends and allies that you hang out with, because of course Mars is the ruler of your 11th house, and you are changing who you are, therefore what you do visibly in the world and who you hang out with. Gotta love the trine, whole sign trine from Pluto in the 9th, indicating a powerful connection to deep purpose and meaningful career path, meaningful life. The meaning of your life is on your radar in a way it wasn't in 1989 to 1991. That's the new energy. Some of you may get involved in book publishing, foreign lands, foreign shores in a very powerful and very significant way in the next couple of years as well. You may also reconnect with a spiritual path or find a new spiritual path because of Pluto in the 9th house. And it's probably very much spiritual, but not religious, because of the Pluto not really representing traditional religion in your 9th house. You do want to note, however, or as well, I should say as well, not however, that this is opposing your 7th house of business partnerships and long-term committed relationships. And there will be major changes in who you are. And you've got a sword in your hand, and you may sever and end and exit from long-term but business and love connections that are no longer useful to you and who you are as you revise and reform your entire life over the next 2 years. You want to check 1989 out for comparisons, right? 89 to 91, to see if you can't feel into how this happened back then. Similar themes as a broad brushstroke will be repeating. Cancer, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, this is very subtle. And I wonder how it felt back in the day, guys, because the 12th house is often very almost like the tip of your tongue, or dreams at night, or foggy, daydreamy reveries, places that aren't right front and center for us, a little hidden from our view. And there's a new beginning in this part of the chart. Now, it is a spiritual house for moksha, or spiritual attainment, liberation from the matrix dream. And it's the full-on Monty Buddhahood. And if you're aiming in that direction, well, go for it. This could be a massive 2-year breakthrough in your spiritual liberation. You could also be a massive breakthrough in self-undoing, self-sabotaging addictions patterns, habits, and a massive breakthrough to do with the way you can earn revenue from international companies, sources, people, and borderless digital income as well. So there's a big reset here, like it was in March of 89 to June of 1991. There's quite a difference with Pluto, this time in the early degrees of Aquarius, creating a whole sign trine energetic that will bake in the next 2 years to say a lot of your changes here are also going to impact your longer range plans regarding shared monies with your spouse, investments, retirement plans, money to do with royalty income. A lot of you are really going full on to power up new levels of financial power as Pluto moves to that 8th house. And this bakes in a bit of that financial power if the power comes from international and borderless revenue. Jupiter does rule your 9th house, and some of that may come through publications or podcasting or book publishing as options. And Mars rules your 10th house of career, and indicating some of this bold new excitement can involve changes that are positive in both your career and in your 9th house matters. And that includes the word international and foreign lands as it applies to career matters. But that was true or not back in 89 to 91. Go back and see how that played out for you. Because with Chiron in the North Node, which you can't see, but trust me, they are in your 10th house, you're trying to get your key to purpose in your career and reputation, and you're trying to heal a wound about your truest purpose and calling in this world. And you want to show the world what your original magical gifts are that you're here to give us. This can be the beginning of a real shift around leaning more deeply into your ability to, because this new beginning sextiles Chiron and sextiles the North Node in your 10th house. Different story than 1989 to 91. I say it can help propel you to a deep soul satisfaction in the work you're doing in the world, and probably a greater increase in wealth as a result of that. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. We end up here with this energetic reset button, last seen in 1989 March to 1991 June, giving you a 2-year window of time to begin anew in bold, confident, daring, fortunate action and decisions in how you prosper and thrive with enthusiastic passion in your 11th house of good spirit, which is always a good house. So how this resets you is you have new groups of friendships, new social movements you belong to. Jupiter, Mars here are very social movement oriented. You join climate action committees, or you join, women's rights groups or something like that. You get very motivated there. You also could find that you've got a lot of support from very powerful allies, benefactors, and people who wish to help you succeed over the next 2 years. And you may deeply redefine your long range goals and ambitions for your life. You may find a new direction. You may have some significant positive relationship support from the sibling one older than you over the next 2 years. And you may have found that to be true in 89 to 91 as well. This reset button also indicates success and resets maybe for that elder sibling, but you get benefits from it as this flows in a sextile to your Leo, sun, moon, or rising sign position. Now, technically, I would say with the Pluto transit giving it something different in 89 to 91, you may find some of this power in your 11th house is impacting your significant marriage type relationships as well as business partnerships. And it can look like some significant powerful change in the social groups and the social life of you and your spouse or partner in love or business. With Jupiter ruling your 8th house, or bringing forth from the pennies from heaven in the 11th, and the great career gains, greater money stemming from your career, and greater financial rewards, and how you manage to invest that money, how you manage to, use that money to leverage money, even to buy property at some point, because Mars rules your 4th house of property. Looks like a lot of you are getting a couple of years of a more increased glow up in your financial wellness that may allow you to sell or buy property in a very powerful and effective and fortunate action way. And I would say with, Jupiter looking across at his domicile, because he is in detriment, he's looking across at Sagittarius with Mars, and it can mean there's some big change going on here. Collateral change in your 5th house, maybe change with a child, maybe a child moving out of the house, maybe a new relationship with a child. The way Jupiter Mars is making changes that are fortunate, and how you befriend, relate to, children. If you're single, I guess you could have a relationship with someone romantically off of this, but I'll tell you, if you do get a reset button in love and romance here, Leos, it's because that person belongs to some group of friends, and that's how the two of you combine your connection together. For females looking for love, Jupiter is your ideal planetary mate partnership energy, and therefore this is especially positive for women looking for love in all the right places, but find that love perhaps by some group event or friendship circle setting in the next 2 years. All righty, Virgo, sun, moon, and especially rising. Well, this is a cycle that happened if you're alive back in 1989 to 91. You can compare notes, and this is back again in your 10th house of career and reputation. And so there's an expansion, growth, bold confidence, and action. There's a real acceleration because of the actions and decisions you make of your prosperity and your enjoyment and your success in your career. And if you're retired, and what you do that people see you doing, or if you're a student, in your grades and how you act as a student. It's the visible world of your social status, and it's on the uprise in the next 2 years, but there's also changes there. Mars brings change. Did you have major changes in your career status in 89 to 91? Now, with Pluto, unlike back in the day, for the first time in a whole sign trine from the 6th house, it's indicating a baked-in energy of career and job and pets and tenancies and rentals. But let's face it, the 6th house is the job house, the work environment, the employer-employee stories. The 10th house is the boss at the top of the sky. So in the next 2 years, you may be elevated to superior positions in your work, to being a boss, a director. It's all about elevation and job, and you're powering up to greater success. It's a great 2 years for you Virgos in the job market already. And if you're not, you can succeed in finding some really powerful and prosperous and wealthy positions, like wealth generating positions in the work world over the next couple of years. And in Jupiter, as looking across at his domicile, it could indicate some changes of home connected to your work. And because Jupiter and Mars are about bounteous and prosperous, severing and ending in a square to Jupiter's domicile in your 7th, some of you Virgos may find, unfortunately, that there is a completion in one of your longer term love stories. I'm not guaranteeing that, but it's a possibility because it's all about you succeeding in the outer world. But that square from Mars and Jupiter, angular to your 7th house, Jupiter's domicile, can indicate there is an end in the next couple of years to an existing relationship. Mars is the owner of the 8th house of shared resources with a long-term partner or business partner. And there may be some bounteous and prosperous separation agreements as well being formed in the next 2 years regarding maybe a mutual detente and ending that's like namaste, etc. If you have, I'm not going to scare you, elderly partners, like you guys are all like in the age where people start dying on you, just saying there's a small possibility that could also look like this sort of ending as well. Not for you young people with your 20, 30-year-old partners. I'm talking about, are you listening in your, in your late 60s, 70s, or 80s? Just be aware. Mars is the ruler of your widowmaker 8th house with Jupiter, the marriage god, and it just could end up looking like that too. But anyway, the career story is a marvelous one. I just have to say, I'm not going to change that story at all, but I will give you guys, I don't want to worry you. Life happens, but there's my crow outside my window. You're friends with your work. You're enjoying your life because you're successful in your work. You're feeling the excitement of your swagger in the workplace, and that's where you're getting your satisfaction, or in your reputation, or in your social status, whatever that means to you, how the world sees you writ large on the top of the sky. Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign in the sky. What you have, oh, the crow loves me. Hi, bye. You have this energy of Jupiter and Mars last seen in 1989. So go back in time in your time travel machine. What were you doing in 1989? What were you doing in March of 89 to June of 1991? That may have been a change regarding visas, passports, foreign countries, foreign shores, and foreign lands, publications, book publishing, visas, big changes regarding legal and court cases and matters to do with that, big changes in your spiritual philosophy and religion, resetting that button there, and maybe some big resets in what you consider your dharmic path and the meaning of your life, the power of the deeper purpose of being on planet Earth, and reconstituting that between 89 and 1991. Here we are again, and you're doing it again, but with help from Pluto, unlike before. Pluto says power up, entrepreneurial success, money, luck, good fortune, and speculation. Power up your enthusiasm, joy for life, power up your sexuality, and power up your entrepreneurial powers. If you're an entrepreneur or a creative artist, all of these want to power up, and they're going to help influence the reset. Book publishing, international shores, podcasting. It could indicate a period of bountiful, joyful engagement with grandchildren. And if you're a Libra old enough for your kids to have kids, that's kind of a story that could happen here as well. Ninth house is grandchildren, fifth house is children. I mean, Pluto moving through your fifth house, don't be afraid of it, but you're making massive transformational changes in how you exact joy and enthusiasm and inspiration within your life, and creativity and procreativity. And it's playing out at the highest part of the sky, one of the highest parts of the sky. Your visible entrepreneurial and creative output is successful and bounteous and prosperous. And it indicates fortunate action to allow that to be true. Especially wonderful for Libras who may want to write something that succeeds in the larger world. Jupiter rules your house of writing. He's in the house of publications. Okay. Watch for some positive engagements with partners, legal, business, because of Mars's rulership of your seventh house. Major changes in your work environment with Jupiter square to your sixth. So you may quit your day job, take up some kind of creative entrepreneurial writing projects or business, and you may have some major changes that are positive regarding seventh house people. If you're a Libra looking for a relationship, first of all, if you're in a tough relationship, you could have a blessed ending with a really good ending, like legal agreements work out and everybody agrees in mediation. We're tying up these ends. And if you're looking for love, or one ends, another one could begin in the next 2 years with someone from afar, a foreign shore. I forgot to mention one more thing. Sorry, going off to university and college is a ninth house matter. And some of you may have some really big boosts there. Get accepted at your favorite university. Have the next 2 years look like you've got the best grades in your cohort, getting elevated to, magna cum laude or something. So really good academic environment stories as well for the next 2 years for Libra sun, moon, and rising sign. And that's what we got for you. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising. The sky is opening up a beautiful prosperity window for the next 2 years. Why? Because it's a money house, the eighth house. It has all kinds of meaning: occult mysteries, magic, secrets, infidelities, betrayals. Sure, some dark stuff there, but it's also connected to wealth. It's a natural Scorpio house ruled by Pluto, the god of riches. It also connects to wealth because it's other people's money. It's money that you share with your shareholder in a company. You own a stock. You own money, share money with your spouse, share money with a business partnership. You share money because the government gives you some money back from your taxes. You share money with these entities, and the money you share, the others people's money that you can reach into the pockets and get, is your eighth house. Well, royalty income from book publishing as well. You should see J.K. Rowling stellium in her whole sign eighth house, and she's a trillionaire on royalty income. Bottom line, this is where you prosper, Scorpios, in that kind of money in the next 2 years. You may be old enough to remember 1989, right? March to 1991, that cycle that may have influenced you to prosper as well in that time frame. However, you did not have support from Pluto in your fourth house, and the fourth house is legacy wealth, like from mom or dad or grandpa, grandma, or somewhere up the line. And it may indicate that legacy wealth is coming your way in the next 2 years, especially the transit of Jupiter in general through the eighth house for 2 years every 12 years indicates, for 1 year every 12 years indicates the potential for inheritances. And this is true for you until next June. So I'm just letting you know that's quite a strong possibility in the sky right now. And with the sun in the 10th house of father figures at the top of the sky, it can also be money from father figures, in particular when we come to the term legacy wealth. You would also note that Jupiter here is going to, because he is the ruler of your second house, try to take care of the hustle around survival needs and earnings and maybe help give you some benefits there. And Jupiter also might say that he could bring you major fertility, new children coming into your life, your children. But I'll give you a tip. If you get pregnant or your partner, in the next 2 years, it is someone from your family of origin who's reincarnated. I'll explain it to you in another teaching class, but you will be bringing back your grandpa, your grandma, or someone up the line coming through as your child. And pregnancy and fertility is fortunate action, according to Mars Jupiter in the eighth house of death. So you could be witnessing here some new children coming through the pipeline of your life if you're of the childbearing age or desire to have children. Now, and just to mention a quick note, any kind of job, work, career path that you really don't like and haven't been jiving with, Chiron, the wound, North Node changes, is going to end in the next 2 years. That old career path that you really just been slogging at, something about it's not working for you, it's probably going to change. And it will be changing over the course of 2 years so that you can find more true purpose and key to purpose in the work you're here to do and service you're here to do in the world. And if you have any debts you need to eliminate, like bank debts, mortgages, credit cards, this is going to help you eliminate that debt in the next 2 years. Hey, Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising. What's going on is you've got this conjunction of Mars and Jupiter, last seen in 1989 to 91, back again in your seventh house of long-term committed love and partnership. Now, it can be a fortunate, blessed ending where you are no longer going to be with someone, severing an ending of a long-term committed love story or marriage partnership. It may have happened in 1989 to 1991. If it happens again, trust me, it's a good thing. You're going to go, hallelujah. Thank you, Jupiter, blessed endings in my marriage house. This is more true the closer your ascendant degree is to 16 degrees of Sagittarius. It's more true for Sagittarius rising rather than sun or moon. Otherwise, it's in the house of other people you find fortune, action, and bounty. Your wife, your spouse, your partner, they're having husband, financial bounty, good things happening, major life decisions, and fortunate action. Or it could indicate changes that go on in your significant one-to-one relationships that bring you pleasure, bounty, fantastic prosperity, expansion, and growth. You could expand by virtue of some people you're connecting with that allow for your own personal expansion in some way in the next 2 years. Now, if you're single and you're looking for a partner and this conjunction is setting in here, you could find a very masculine energy. This is very swagger. This is very commander in chief. Mars is masculine as a general principle. Jupiter is just bigger and larger than life. And you can find yourself with a wealthy, super swaggery energy. But Gemini is a kind of a bisexual sign, just so you know, all double bodies are. So this may not just be a classic machismo male, but it may be a male with really good communication skills, right? But especially for men or women looking for a swaggery partner who has got masculine but tempered a bit with an intellect, this could bring that kind of character into your life for a long-term committed love story. The support from Pluto in your third house, unlike in 1989 to 1991, that support from Pluto in your third house can indicate major success in writing and communications projects, online world matters, skills-based learning and teaching. These areas of life have thrival, and you may be traveling quite a lot over the next 2 years because Pluto would give you power, riches, and wealth and transformation through travel, usually shorter distance. But would it be connected to a spouse or a business partnership? Maybe, because of the trine to the seventh house. Or if you're looking for love, Pluto may indicate the meeting of that person in a teaching, educational, or traveling environment in the next couple of years. But if you did separate from the major love story in 89 to 91, this is yet another redo. And so you may expect that if that's something that you're dreading or hoping for, that it could be back again. And lastly, Jupiter is the ruler of your fourth house of home, squaring the fourth house of home in a reset from the seventh. Ultimately, a major change of home could be indicated thanks to Jupiter in the next 2 years. And because Mars rules your fifth house, major change of home and connections to your children and or romantic lover in the mix of why you have a change of home. You like your home, you're living happily somewhere far, far away from your kids or close to your kids, and you want to move towards or away from them in the next 2 years. Or you are looking at a romantic partner and getting closer to where they live and needing to move closer together in the next 2 years. So home changes connected to children, connected to love relationships over the next 2 years. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. You last saw Mars and Jupiter in that sixth house back in 1989. It was the month of March through to June of 1991. What does it mean this time around? First of all, it simply means fortune, action, bold confidence, swagger, and change. Good change in your sixth house of work. This is like the colleagues, co-workers, worker, employer, employee relationship zone. It's your job, your jab. Your job is going to change. It's going to feel good. You could have changes in the job that are significant, elevations, more responsibility, more power, but you're also Mars in the house of his joy. You're in your groove. You're enjoying it. Have you been struggling with a health challenge and you need to resolve it? Mars rules surgery and action, and Jupiter says blessed outcomes, and all Capricorns with health challenges may look at major turning points in the health challenges in the next 2 years. What about Pluto? Not there last time in 1991, 89 to 91. Pluto is saying, money, honey, power up your savings, power up your possessions, power up riches in your resources financially, and let's apply it to the workhouse. With Mars ruling your sixth house of home, also to rentals. You may power up financial success by renting a property out, by becoming a tenant in an affordable rental, or by moving and changing your home. Because the sun is baking in the eighth house of mortgages, and Mars is a ruler of the eighth house, buying and selling property, renting new property is possible. Mostly, though, because of the power from Pluto in the second house, it kind of guarantees an elevation of financial success through work and job related matters over the course of the next 2 years. It's a little bit like you ain't seen nothing yet, because Pluto is giving you a kind of wealth through work, Jupiter, fortune, action, new directions that you haven't had in your life. This applies mostly to the ascendant Capricorn and sun Capricorn people, a little bit less so to the moon. For you moon Capricorns, it's probably more about a change of home, whether it's purchase, buy, or rental. I'm not sure. And do you need a new pet? Jupiter says a Great Dane. Mars says a war dog. That would mean you'd probably get yourself a, what is those big Roman dogs, guys, that fought in the Roman wars? Not the, what are they called? Mastiffs? Yeah. You probably get yourself a Mastiff, but it could indicate a bigger, larger than life fortunate situation with a new pet, and you possess it, which Pluto, because it costs you a fortune from the breeder, but you might get a new pet in the next 2 years. Again, Jupiter, Mars, I don't know, a guard dog, a big dog, a big cat, a guard cat. You got the idea. All right, I am one of you, Aquarius. I'm a rising, and this is for you, Aquarius rising, sun and moon sign. 1989 to 1991, Jupiter and Mars did a reset button in your natal fifth house. It's a big deal. This reset button invites you into a new beginning when it comes to children. Jupiter is a ruler of children, and it can be a reset button in how you relate to an existing child. Now, Mars typically in the fifth house can mean separation, but if there is a separation from an existing adult or child, it brings positive things by cutting a tie and apron string. Maybe child moves out of house or something like that. It's interesting for fertility, where Jupiter says, let's make a lot of family here. Mars is the god of, abortions and, miscarriages. It's a mixed bag here. So I'm going to give you a tip if you're a fertile female who's engaging, or a male who's got a fertile female egg bearer, and you're trying to make a baby. I just want to say, if something doesn't work out here, don't get upset, because Jupiter is protective energy. He bonifies Mars. So, sometimes a body will discard a growing fetus because there's a problem. The child would have a handicap. You could try again. So I'm just giving you a kind of rely on things are happening for you in the fertility house, not to you. Jupiter Mars is super powerful for entrepreneurial endeavors. If you want to start your own business and you are Aquarius rising, you don't already have your own business like I do, you're going to start one and it's going to be very successful, and your creative projects will be very successful. And I'm already an entrepreneur, so my entrepreneurial business is going to pick up steam, but Mars indicates changes because I'm swaggering with fortune and action and how I do my entrepreneurial business in new ways. And so will you if you do that, Aquariuses. Pluto's powering up from the house of you, which has not happened in this lifetime before, to support this uplift in your fifth house. Pluto, you are rich, transformational, powerful, authoritative. Hopefully not a dictator tyrant, but you can be that. So be careful. And you're flowing that energy in the next 2 years. It is flowing through you, transpersonal divine will through you to the house of creative projects, art, entrepreneurial endeavors, enjoyment, fertility, fun, play, and pleasure, reset button, romance and sexuality. Now, if you're single looking for love, it's going to be like a hot, sizzling love affair. A big love can come full of transformational power. If you're already in a love relationship, it's going to elevate it to that level of transformational romance, big love romance. You got the vibe, especially with the sextile to the sun in a Leo at the time of, sun in Leo. Sun still in Leo then? Brain back online. Yes, of course, the sun's still in Leo then, especially with the sun still in the sign of Leo at the time. And I do want to say that the Mars-Jupiter conjunction, it's really about, like, Jupiter's in a place where he can expand everything that has to do with the life force in you. You know, our life force, Eros, creative, procreative, generative vibe is in that fifth house. You know, you make a baby there, you get a pregnancy there. What do you want to give birth to in your life, in the womb of your life, that's bold, ambitious, good, noble, expansive, prosperous, and wise? Jupiter, guru, that dispels darkness in the world. So keeping that abreast of that, Mars rules your writing house, your social media and online world. Some of that plays out here. Mars is a ruler of your financial, Jupiter rules your financial resources. That increases as well because of what's going on in that fifth house reset button. Better financial resources, despite Saturn's traveling through your second house, but he's just helping you structure the money, save the money, like I incorporated, etc. And in the third house, also, you may rely on some better bounty and prosperity connected to a younger sibling or siblings in general, also connected to more travel opportunities and communicating opportunities and marketing opportunities and selling opportunities and teaching and learning opportunities. These are the things that Mars rules in that third house, and they are enlivened and uplifted in the next 2 years. And Pisces, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, Mars and Jupiter are co-joined together, not seen in a way since 1989 to 91, in the house of home, property, land, and real estate. Did you move? Did you move to a better, more spacious home? Did you expand your life because of shift or change in the home? Did you build a new home? Did you expand your existing home? Did you add like a wing or a garden studio or something? Those are the vibes of what happened between 89 and 1990. Now, Jupiter means fertility, and it can mean there was more children in the home. Did you get pregnant then? Did you have a new child enter the home at the time of 1989 to 1991? Those are ways it could have played out. Legacy wealth or inheritance monies, 89 to 91, could have occurred for some Pisces rising, right? Sun and moon secondarily. And that would have been 89 to 1991. Now, the other energy going on here is that you're noticing, and I'm thinking of my sister. I believe my sister moved back then at Pisces rising, but I'm trying to remember what year that was for her. But anyway, you get the gist, right? I'm trying to think. I was in New York City. My son was being born. I think she might have moved with her man to a new town and expanded their home. Okay, but the gist is there. But it's different than 1989 to 91 because this time around you have Pluto in your 12th house. Now that can apply riches and transformational energy from a far off foreign shore from your birthplace. And your home changes, expansion, and growth may connect to far off foreign places. Now, if you're already in a far off foreign place, fine. But if you're not, you might actually move to another country or another shore in order to expand or grow this kind of bounteous prosperity from your home. I've seen Jupiter here in general for people look like you get rich from home. So a lot of you might get rich from home. And if you do digital income, making money from abroad through PayPal or Stripe, that's where Pluto is. Making riches happen from your home as a new change of direction, bold fortune, action can work for a lot of Pisces. because Jupiter is the ruler of, the owner of the real estate of you. He's your Lord. He's working for you, and he is willing to do what is necessary for you to be bounteous and prosperous because of your home, in your home, connected to your home, etc. Mars is the expat signature here. Some of you may move far, far, far away from home and be prosperous, but maybe you move far away from home in 89, 91 anyway. And so now you're already there, but you may move to another country or another place as well in the next 2 years. And especially with Pluto in the 12th house this time around. Now, this energy to do with legacy wealth, inheritance money, etc., can come because you're also selling a property. This is very like, let's cash in the chips on a property. And I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't occur. Venus will be in the sign of Virgo and a sign of her fall, but in the sign of contractual agreements at the time of the conjunction. And though there's a fall, it could be selling a property because of a divorce settlement, selling a property because you need to, but there is a possibility of taking money off the table from the sale of land, property, or real estate and creating some prosperity for some of you in this window of time of the next 2 years. Mars is the ruler of your second house, and he will try to strengthen your financial success, particularly your savings, your resources, or your possessions. And this could be dispossessing you of a home or helping you possess a home in the next 2 years. The key here is prosperity connected to land, real estate, and home, but change and the decisions and actions needed to make that true. And that's about all I have for everyone. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. I appreciate you listening to this video, and I hope you'll give me a try by subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed before and you're one of my regulars, come aboard, jump into the Lunatic Astrology train. I'm trying to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Can you help me do it? If you can, I'd really, really appreciate that. I had my nails done just for my son's wedding. I never have my nails done, but I might keep doing it. So I'm sort of like flashing my fingers in front of you. Thanks, guys. Look forward to seeing how this impacts you. Let me know what you think. Let me know how it does impact you. And historically, I love reading your comments. I do read my comments. I still haven't pawned them off on an assistant. I try to read as many as I can, so I do connect with you down below. But if you want to get more connection with me, my Patreon community gets early access ad-free. This is recorded on August the 8th. You'll be getting it today or tomorrow and well ahead of the YouTube crowd. And it's for $5 a month. You get this content without the ads and before the rest of the world, plus up to 3 Zoom meetings with me a month. And I may be putting in place a 4th Zoom meeting in the month of September, where we're going to do a live call together. That will be for all tiers. So if you're interested in that, jump aboard my Patreon community, a live call on the platform itself. All right. Ciao, ciao. And I'll see you guys soon.